Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Haifa Gattan and you're watching AUC TV. UN Arab League envoy Syria, Lakhdar Brahimi, has visited Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi in Cairo to discuss the Syrian conflict. The meeting was held on Sunday, which no one has yet to comment on. Brahimi, who is scheduled to address the UN Security Council on Thursday, has not been able to make progress in his mission to push forward a peace plan for Syria, which he presented in June at an international conference in Geneva. He had angered the Syrian government in December by saying that the 4-decade rule of the Assad family had gone on too long. The conflict in Syria began in March 2011 with mostly peaceful protests, but since then has evolved into a civil war that the United Nations says at least 70,000 people have been killed. International efforts to find a peaceful solution to the conflict have failed. Also in Cairo, the 84-year-old former Egyptian president, who is being held at a military hospital in Cairo, he may be released from prison because of health conditions. A court case should be deciding on that today. Mubarak arrived at the police academy to attend the court session. It will decide on his release pending a retrial in the cases of involvement in the killing of protesters during the 25th January revolution. Other charges involve financial corruption. The appeals court is examining a request submitted by Mubarak's lawyer Farid Adib for the release of Mubarak on the grounds that the period of provisional detention has expired. AUC students have different opinions about this issue.
I don't think it's going to be fair if the judgment came out and he's innocent, because after all those years, after decades of his rule and all in the Arab region, I don't think any of the leaders would be innocent.
Mubarak's innocent means that all the people that died in the revolution to make his regime fall have died for nothing, and it also means that Muslim Brotherhood, which are in power right now, are not doing anything wrong because they're doing exactly the same thing Mubarak did, and this is not fair for all the people who died to make this country a better place. And it's actually not being a better place, it's actually being worse.
I don't think I care that much.
Before 2 months or 3 months ago, I would say that I would be really surprised, but after what's happening now, this would not surprise me, yes.
I feel like all of these people who died for absolutely no reason. Nothing happened.
Staying in the region, Hezbollah-backed fighters are taking an active role on the ongoing Syrian conflict along the borders with Lebanon. According to AP, their mission is to protect the Shiites on the Syrian side who claim their homes, families, and villages have come under attack from Sunni rebels. Hezbollah chief Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, leader of many of Lebanon's Shiites and a strong ally of Syrian President Bashar Assad, said that his group is supporting the cadres of fighters who call themselves popular committees. A unit commander, Haj Mahmoud, said on Saturday that Shiite villages in Syria have been repeatedly attacked and some residents have been kidnapped and killed by rebels.
بالبداية نحن كنا ببداية الأزمة في سوريا كنا على الحياد، يعني ما تدخلنا حتى ضيعنا وأهلنا كانت على الحياد، ولكن بعد ما تعرضت ضيعتنا لأكثر من هجوم من قبل المسلحين وصار في سرقة وقتل بضمن الضيعة اللي نحن فيها، تم الاتفاق على تشكيل لجان شعبية، يعني هن من أهالي الضيعة ومن شباب هيدي المنطقة. تم تشكيل أكثر من مجموعة لحماية هيدي الضيعة وحماية أهلها ومنع المجموعات المسلحة من إنه تدخل وترجع تعتدي على أهلنا.
Even though Hezbollah confirms backing the fighters, it denies it is taking part in the wider civil war. Syrian rebels, however, accuse Hezbollah of propping up the Assad regime. On an international level, South Korean markets have opened slightly lower amid concerns over increased tension on the Korean peninsula. The benchmark index KOSPI slipped to 0.42% to open at around 2,000 points. Foreign governments have been struggling to assess how seriously to take North Korea's recent torrent of angry rhetoric over continuing U.S.-South Korean military maneuvers just across the border. North Korea rebuffed last week's proposal by Seoul to resolve the tensions through dialogue. The North described the offer as a crafty trick to disguise what Pyongyang calls the South's hostility, and said it will not talk unless Seoul abandons its confrontational posture. Officials in South Korea, the United States and Japan say intelligence indicates that fresh off a successful nuclear test in February, Pyongyang's leaders are ready to launch a new medium-range missile. Going back to the region in Somalia, 16 people were reported killed when Al-Shabaab Islamist extremists stormed Somalia's main core complex in Mogadishu. One car bomb detonated outside the core and gunmen were on the roof of a core building firing shots. The government said that 9 militants attacked the core complex, setting off bombs and firing a barrage of bullets. It was reported that all 9 died during the attack. Somali parliamentarian who heads a security committee said Monday that the toll from the attacks on the core complex and a separate car bomb could rise even further because of the number of seriously wounded. Dozens were hurt in the attacks. Al-Shabaab once controlled almost all of Mogadishu. The armed Islamic militants were pushed out of the city in 2011 but continue to carry on attacks. In AUC news, the Women Journalists in Egypt lectures comes to an end, hosting AUC alumnus reporter Alwa Gaballa. Gaballa, who has specialized in covering taboo topics such as atheism and homosexuality. She believes it is important to cover in order to let the audience be more accepting with different points of views.
I try to win them over by not being offensive. It's important not to be offensive, and I actually sent the article to a lawyer, like the same friend who's a lawyer. I was like, is there anything offensive in there? Am I gonna go to jail? And he was like, no. He read the thing over and over, and he was like, you have nothing to worry about. He told me to remove one comment that I made.
Gaballa graduated in 2011 from the Journalism and Mass Communications Department. She now works at a Thomson Reuters Foundation-sponsored website, Aswat Masri, where she posts different articles. There is an Arabic site as well as an English site that she refers to as her baby after working on it for over a year. After being asked about being objective, Gaballa explains that it is about how stories are structured.
Decide on one format so that we force ourselves to be objective. Now, for example, if two Muslim Brotherhood supporters get killed, or if two pro-revolution protesters get killed, then we use the same language, and that's how I see when someone who's working with me is not being objective. I'm just like, you said killed here and dead here, so we just kind of have a list of terms to stay on track. We're just like, you can't say that.
She also touches on the topic of credibility. She refers to Professor Kim Fox teaching her about consistency and being efficient. She explains that having many sources is something that Aswat Masriya takes seriously.
What we do is, like I said, we have a format so that not to stray away and be subjective and disinform people. What we do is we report it how it is. If the Middle East News Agency says something, then we'll say, we'll write the story about that, and we'll say, masalan, 2 people were killed, in clashes, blah blah blah, and then we'll say reported the state news agency, and then we'll go back and masalan, if the BBC masalan said a different number, or if Reuters masalan said a different number, then we'll write that down as well.
Gaballa believes that this is a great time to be living in Egypt, and if the members of this community don't document it, as she said in her own words, who else will? On a lighter note, 7-year-old pediatric brain cancer battling Jack Hoffman scores a touchdown in Nebraska's spring game. In the fourth quarter of the Cornhuskers' annual spring game, number 22 Jack Hoffman trotted off the sidelines and onto the field as the red team was facing a critical 4th and 1 with quarterback Taylor Martinez lined up in the shotgun and Jack lined up directly to his left. The offense started and the red team backed up little Jack all the way for him to score a touchdown. The Nebraska football program organized this event to support young Jack while fighting his cancer. That's all for today. Thank you for watching and see you next time.